Thank you for joining Catholic Gen X, where we're excited that breakdancing is finally an Olympic sport.
That's right.
No, we are not. We are not.
You know, one of the reasons why my wife married me, there's so many intangibles, but way back in the day in the 1980s, I took breakdance lessons.
Oh.
And there was a place not too far down the road.
This is before you took swing dance lessons.
Right.
That's right.
There's a theme here.
A frustrated dancer. Yeah.
Sorry.
I took 3 lessons, and so I had the first, which was the moonwalk.
Right.
Michael Jackson was big. That was
Was
big
that
back
really?
then.
Was moonwalk really breakdancing? I don't know.
Yeah.
It was worked into that.
And everybody did it and then would do something flashier.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. If you watch Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo,
Right.
There's probably
Not as good as the
moonwalk.
original Breakin', probably.
I don't know. I don't remember seeing the first.
Well, they're all kind of the same, isn't it?
I don't know.
And then I did one lesson was the gyro spin.
Sure.
Did you have to bring your own cardboard box or piece of linoleum?
It was all part of the $5 for the lessons, so they actually provided the cardboard. And then the last was the California wave, the worm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I see, a lot of the Olympic athletes now and think, what I could have been. If I hadn't gone to grad school, I could have been an Olympian.
So have you actually watched this breakdancing? Is it happened yet?
I think it's supposed to air at the 9th, like a couple more days or
Yeah.
so.
The funniest thing to me about that anecdote is that you paid $5 a lesson for that. And that was considered legitimate.
In 1983, that was $100 probably
Right.
a lesson. So
this was before your dad passed.
Mm-hmm.
Everything I've heard about your dad, it's hard for me to imagine him signing you up for, taking you, and paying for breakdancing lessons.
it was mostly through my cousin, who was kind of his parents were kind of hillbillies in some way, and it was kind of like the newest thing. So I got the ride from them.
Okay.
So I don't know where I got the $5, but
While we're talking about the Olympics, there's a very obvious Catholic topic surrounding the Olympics. I did not watch the opening ceremonies,
Okay.
and I purposely not gone back and watched the video, so I am ignorant. Was it or was it not the Last Supper? What do you think?
I didn't see that part of it.
I think it was, but I also think that arrangement of people is now like an iconic way of conveying messages.
Because now they're saying, "Oh no, it was
Right.
it was the
And
feast of Dionysius."
if you see the painting they're referring to, it's copying Da Vinci's Last Supper in its arrangement, very intentionally.
So explain to the listeners if they haven't seen exactly what was performed.
So I purposely not watched it because I don't need to be any angrier at the world than I already am.
Mm-hmm.
But my understanding is it was a very diverse group of performers.
Yeah, I mean, it was some drag queens, all drag queens.
At least some.
I don't really know either.
But it's pretty controversial.
Yes.
So I don't need more controversy in my life, so I purposely avoided it. But I thought maybe you too. I'm surprised you don't have the typewriter out.
I did all that for writing letters so breakdance would be an Olympic sport. So they eventually got tired of my letters. I read about it. I saw part of the opening ceremonies. I just didn't see that. So I watched Lady Gaga sing in French and a couple other things that were very French.
And then did Celine Dion sing in English?
No.
No, she sang a very famous Edith Piaf song, I believe.
It was very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, nothing, second to only when she sang in Titanic. My Heart Goes On. But no, I didn't see that. But I think there's been a lot of buzz, a lot of murmur about that, and people have been, pretty upset.
Yeah.
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 I mean, I think part of it is it underpins the reality that all Western culture up until the World War II was Christian culture. And whether or not they meant it to parody Da Vinci's Last Supper is a little bit beside the point because they're parodying Western art tropes at the very least, and that's invented by us.
Well, and so you've got this huge athletic / cultural event, right? Worldwide. Of course the French are going to take the opportunity to try to piss everybody off.
Right.
I mean, it's just...
Right. The French see themselves as provocative and edgy, and that's the thing.
You can't tell me that like the hundreds of people, thousands of people involved in the planning, and some part of that being the opening ceremonies, somebody wouldn't say,
"Hey, this looks like the Last Supper."
That's right. I mean, it's like, what a strange coincidence, right?
But I think they don't care. I don't know. Who knows if they set out to anger or offend the Christians, but I think when it comes down to it, if somebody did point that out, they just shrug and say, oh, they don't matter.
So I think, I've never been to France. I think of France as one of the traditional Catholic, maybe somewhat Catholic stronghold
countries. It used to be called the eldest daughter of the church.
But I'm gathering that's not reality anymore.
No, it's got like the rate of baptized or proclaimed Catholics is still fairly high, 60-70%, but it's got like a 10% mass attendance.
Wow, that's pretty low.
It's not like the Scandinavian countries, which to me is like the American South. Like,
right.
To be a Catholic in Scandinavia, you got to want
right.
it.
Things went downhill in France after anti-popes and everything else, and
the Revolution,
French Revolution,
right? And then the recovery from the Revolution was to declare that France is a secular state, and that was how they were able to get all the kind of fighting parties in the aftermath to get on board.
So I'm embarrassed to say this because I was a history major. The famous line from the French Revolution, "Let them eat cake." I was way into adulthood before I finally got that.
Yeah. But the actual line in French is brioche, not cake.
Okay.
Marie Antoinette allegedly saw that or heard that people were rioting and said, why are the people upset?
There's no bread.
Because there's no bread. They have no bread. And she said, well, why don't they eat brioche? And it was a sign of how out of touch the aristocracy was, more than like a cruelty.
Cake kind of takes it up a notch.
Right. It'd be the equivalent. They have no bread. We'll let them eat croissants. Right? They don't have to have bread. They could also have croissants. It's like George W. Bush going to the supermarket. Remember this? And like, how does a scanner work? This is amazing, right?
So
we're living in Star Trek.
He is an interesting guy, and I would tell you, if you ever have the chance to see him speak in person, you should do so, because what you saw on TV during his
I got them wrong
presidency,
again, isn't it? I'm thinking of the dad.
HW.
That's HW. Okay, George W. If you ever get to see, he came across as kind of goofy, and when you see him in person, even now, I just saw him a few months ago, he's very quick-witted and a very funny and engaging.
And I've heard he's a super nice guy.
Certainly comes across that way when he's speaking in a ballroom with a few thousand of his closest friends.
Right.
And paid to do so.
Yeah,
so.
Right.
Handsomely, I'm sure.
Do you think I could come across as nice if I...
I'm sorry, what was the
I was
question?
paid to do so.
Well, what's the stipend for Father Peter?
I'm guessing it's not close to what George W. gets.
He probably gets a little bit higher. So then a lot of the churches and really the practice of Catholicism is just the sense of really there is none. It's just more the museums of the churches.
That's
right.
the
state owns all the churches in France.
It's like Italy.
Right.
Whoa, in Italy the state owns all the churches?
Some of them. The Vatican owns some, but this was, again, kind of becoming part of becoming a secular state was that the church owns them as part of its cultural patrimony. Sorry, the state owns the churches as part of its cultural patrimony, and the Catholic Church is allowed to use them. And this was part of the big kerfuffle over Notre Dame burning down, was the state owns it, but up until that point, the church had largely paid for upkeep and repairs until they're faced with a catastrophic fire. Then does the state step in and pay or not? So
it was interesting because when they started to ring the bells of Notre Dame, like during the opening ceremonies, it was very much of like discussed that way or introduced. It's like just the history. It wasn't really even talked about so much as a church, and the significance of that, and not that I would expect a lot, but at least some recognition that it was a church. It was like Notre Dame, and the bells were ringing finally after the fire. There was like really no mention or discussion at all of church. I think that maybe that just kind of speaks to secularism as far as France, but also here in the States too, because that was a States broadcast. So back here locally, we just finished our big Eucharistic Congress.
Yeah.
Yep.
The national one,
National.
not just ours.
But,
right?
well, we hosted
We hosted.
here in Indianapolis. Tom didn't go because he was concerned he wasn't going to get
Front row seats.
I have no good reason why I didn't go.
Well,
Just my general apathy.
Father Peter said you wouldn't get an indulgence because it's not really a pilgrimage. It's just like driving downtown.
Indulgences are like candy. You're just throwing those. I don't need any more indulgences. My bag's full.
Wow.
I shouldn't have said that.
That may come up again sometime later, Tom.
But what was it you said early on when you and I were becoming friends? You said some comment about my apathy. My level of apathy
Like
was
5
beyond
minutes ago,
just
or just a
mere,
long time
no,
ago?
this has been a few years ago. Anyway, it was absolutely just my general apathy for anything.
Inertia. That it was too much effort to get the tickets or...
I just...
COVID Tom just wanted to stay home. And
That's my default anyway.
Now, Simon...
Yeah, he went.
But that was it from your family.
Yes, that's correct.
so did he go Wednesday through Sunday?
Yes.
Wow. He's
Kind
not
of.
in seminary after that? Well, I guess he got to graduate high school.
It was not what he'd hoped. It was not the experience he'd hoped it would be.
There were some administrative snafus for his experience that
Oh,
didn't make it great.
okay.
It wasn't just him. I mean, this
Right.
is not this is not personal to him. It's just first time they'd done it in 80 years. They didn't
Right.
get everything right.
Well, so
I'll tell you what they did get right is moving priests from the vesting area to the liturgy and communion at the big liturgies.
Let's talk about vesting areas. I'm going to totally change the topic on you because this seems like the kind of thing that would infuriate you, and I can't believe I haven't asked you. So this summer, Father Peter took my son and John's son to Rome on a pilgrimage with a seminarian.
Right.
How about them getting to go into the vesting room at St. Peter's?
Well,
did they sneak in, or was it
so
actually...
the
They
seminarian...
were with the seminarian.
So the seminarian legitimately was wearing clerics.
Yes.
Which in Rome is just like assumed.
It's a free pass.
Right.
You go wherever you want.
Right. So they did get into the sacristy at St. Peter's.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is the vesting room
No,
next?
I mean, the sacristy at St. Peter's is enormous, and there is vesting done in that big open space, and then but like if you are a bishop, there's another vesting area for you. And
Yeah. Well, I can tell you it was one of the highlights of his trip. He
All right.
thought that was super cool that they
yeah,
got
it's
to go
certainly
back in
off
there.
the beaten path. But if any priest can kind of wander in for a brief look without getting in trouble.
But lay trash.
You got to know somebody. You got
to know somebody.
So he wouldn't say it, but Father Peter was very involved in the Eucharistic Congress as far as liturgy.
Yes.
And so I was there. So much like Tom, I was very interested. I wasn't overly motivated to pull the trigger. A lot of people I knew and priests I talked to said, yeah, there's lots of tickets,
Yeah, John, I'm going to defend the two of us. You and I are I think we are beyond average in how devout we are.
Yes.
But we are certainly not rah-rah Catholics.
Well, keep in mind the average, though. That's all.
I was concerned it was going to be a big rah-rah pep rally, and that's just not for me. And I think you had some of those same concerns.
I did. I mean, I didn't expect it to be... I thought it was outstanding. So I only went for one day. That's maybe partly I was kind of like, oh, this would be good. And I'm not a fanboy. I don't follow a whole lot of people. I read a lot of books, but I don't listen to a whole lot of, probably nationally known speakers and things like that too. So my brother said that he wanted to go, so that was kind of the motivation. So I never got a chance to ask his Father Peter. So my brother and I go Thursday. It's the topic of the whole day is the greatest love story ever told. So
Father Mike Schmitz, which does get your heart beating a little bit.
Well, the gals, I think it was, it's probably about 90% women.
I'm more of a Bishop Robert Barron.
Right.
That's right. Although he only met with clergy, right? It wasn't.
I think he gave at least a keynote.
He gave a speech.
Yeah.
He had a breakout session, but I think it was just with clergy was part of it. So I kind of like put it off a bit. My brother said he wanted to do it. And so it was like, okay, I'll go ahead and get the tickets. That was a good motivator for me. And then almost all the breakout sessions were sold out.
Sold out.
And so I was going to go on Friday, which came at the top.
So that's what happened to the kids. They didn't get to go to any. They were there all 4 days and didn't get to go to a single breakout session.
Which gave me lots of time to walk around kind of the convention, the trade show, and like hand carve, wooden art and things like that.
But do that for 4 days.
Yeah. So, my brother says, just kind of being a smart aleck, he's like, John, why don't you go ahead and get that right there? And this lady's like, you would love this, blah, blah, blah. It was this beautiful hand carved nativity set. It was like $4,000.
Oh.
It's like, I bought a lot of cars. Probably less than that. I might still be.
That's a lot of breakdance.
It was. That was a lot of breakdancing. So went there that Thursday. Had the Rosary, Father Rocky, and all that was neat. Liturgy starts, and so it's kind of like the opposite we talked about in France and maybe other places in the States and certainly Europe, and other countries. But the Mass itself was incredible. So clergy proceeds in. So you have, seminarians, religious, you have, basically deacons, priests, bishops, cardinals. It takes at least 15 minutes just for ordained to come in. Incredible. So you have this sense of where, wow, the Holy Spirit and the church is thriving, it's not dying, and just this sense of excitement is just really, very energizing. And so Mass starts, and then all of a sudden I see my good friend Father Peter walking basically probably about 70 yards out of the stadium. And all I could think of, he must be going for a smoke.
I thought he was going to sit in his chair that was way away from everybody else.
I had things to do.
Well, a lot of important things.
Right.
I mean, you're running a lot of this, right?
Yes.
So I thought, well...
But it also may have been a smoke break. I don't know.
It could have been a two.
I don't know when you saw me.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. So...
my life is so inexplicable. I had somebody said, hey, this Eucharistic Congress is happening. First time in 80 years. It's in St. Louis. Do you want to go for the whole week? I'm like, yeah. But you put it in my backyard and I can't be bothered.
I agree. I thought the same thing. It's like driving 20, 30 minutes. I mean, Yeah, but driving maybe to Seattle or something, yeah, no problem. We'll fly
I know. It doesn't make any sense.
But it was incredible, and I got to go to outside of the main talks. And so this may be interesting or controversial for some of our listeners. So they had the Mass, which is beautiful, and then after that they had, I don't remember the artist, I'm very ignorant about this, they had praise and worship music.
Was it Matt Mayer? Because I kind of wish I would have seen Matt Mayer.
He was there, but not this time, and it was a band, and they were great. And it's, there's a place for praise and worship music, and I think,
right.
All that's good. It's not necessarily my cup of tea. But people were eyes closed and hands up in the air, and, just that sense of engagement with the Holy Spirit. And so I had this, kind of epiphany of where, because I knew my brother was chewing nails at this point. He's worse than I in some ways. And so we're walking out of the stadium, and it's like, isn't this great? And, all the things I'm telling you. And he's like, yeah, but, do we have to have the guitar band and everybody clapping and stuff like that?
But it wasn't at Mass.
It was after Mass.
Right.
Well, Mass it was kind of an interesting...
It was a mix.
It was kind of a mixtape. You had Latin, you had gospel, you had some kind of praise and worship. It was a little bit of a hodgepodge.
This is a big country we live in.
Right.
I'm just reporting the news. I'm not saying anything about it.
When Tom has to be the multicultural ambassador.
The irony, right?
You know how woke I am.
I do.
So we leave the stadium, and I'm like, isn't this great? And Joe's like, I can't believe that music. I said, Joe, you may like more traditional music. You like Latin, things like that. I do too. I said, there's praise and worship music. Those are our preferences. I said, singing and praising God is what's good.
You're having Mass in a football stadium. I think that's all kind of out the door.
Where else is it going to put us, though?
No, but what I'm saying is when you're in it's not like you were at Notre Dame, right?
Right.
I mean...
I thought, generally speaking, the music at Mass was excellent.
I thought it was, too.
And Sunday...
Did you take notes?
Sunday for the closing Mass, I'm not going to let you lead me into darkness, Tom. For the closing Mass, the ISO, the Indianapolis Symphony Orchestra, did the majority of the music
for
the closing Mass, and the choir was just on point. It was stunning. It really was.
So I'm going to show my cradle Catholic ignorance. At daily Mass, we only have one reading.
Right.
Sunday Mass, we have 2 readings.
Before the Gospel.
I'm sure there's a name for those, right?
First, second reading. First
No,
reading, second
I
reading?
mean, there's a name for one type of Mass versus the
Oh,
other.
yeah. So a ferial Mass or a memorial only has one reading before the Gospel.
Okay.
A feast or solemnity, and all Sundays are solemnities, has 2.
So at the Congress, were all the Masses solemnities or only...
No, I mean, we celebrated whatever the day was.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Which today's the Feast of the Transfiguration.
It is.
It is.
Yeah, that's a big one.
I preached to the new Brute seminarians on it today.
Preaching at first-year seminarians, you might want to come up with some different phraseology.
It's
I know that's what it's called, but it's the preaching. It's got a bad connotation, right, to 18-year-old men?
Not to seminarians.
It's fair.
They push all the chips in, Tom. They're all in.
Seminarians were like, "Tell me I'm worse.
Give me more.
Right.
We need more."
That's right.
It's totally different from when you're at our parish.
Oh, absolutely.
And you sit down there and it's like, yes. You sit down and they're like, oh.
Right.
So the Congress, and you'll love this, Tom. So we went to, all the other ones are filled up. Some of it's like Catholic masculinity or spiritual fatherhood, whatever kinds of topics. Edward's Free, which I like. I've read, he was actually very engaging. I've read one of his books and heard some of his podcasts. So we go to the closing session. So Father Mike.
You were there for Father Mike.
I was.
Are the eyes as blue in real life as they are?
We had to sit off to the side. I was like starving to eat. I went ahead and got whatever stadium pizza, which is always the best, right? Yeah.
Were there people like when you go to a game were they walking through like selling manna? And...
That's right. Yep. They used to trade rams and things like that and pigeons. So, Father Mike was great, but before that they had Mother Olga.
Oh yeah.
Did you stay for that?
No, I haven't, but I've heard her speak before.
It was outstanding, and so it was deeply moving. It was so good. She was before Father Mike. And the nun, I don't remember who she was, what order. Pretty much, I think we can all go home.
Right.
Like we're not. It was like basically like Eucharistic miracles, which was incredible.
Sister Miriam, the MC.
Yes, I think that's who it was.
Yeah.
Thank you. And so I kind of felt a little bad for Father Mike, but I knew the ladies were there to kind of cheer him on.
I don't know though. The nuns, man, they have a following. Like my wife knew all the nuns that were going to be. It's like, sister, so, and I had no
some
idea.
of them, like Sister Miriam, has been heavily involved in NCYC in the past. So some of them
Sister
do
Josephine.
Is Sister Josephine the one that's African?
She's African American.
Yeah.
Is she African American?
Yeah.
Yeah. Our sons heard her talk and thought she was incredible for NCYC.
Yeah.
So there's a point of the story. So it was an incredible experience. So I was deeply moved by just everything and just really on fire for the faith. And it's like here's like our home base. Here's the Catholic faith, and we're alive and well. We're growing. Here's our faithful, and seeing more priests and nuns and bishops than we did even when we were in Rome. So I even wrote Sister Olga a letter.
Of course he did.
Please.
I hand wrote her a letter.
And I was going to say, dear listener, he does not mean an email. He means a letter.
I guarantee it was in cursive.
Yeah.
It was.
Long, loopy
Thanking
cursive.
her.
Do you write in manuscript?
I do because my cursive's terrible. But at the end, it was like that part at the end of Hamilton when they're writing letters to each other. Right. It's like John.C.
And I wrote her a letter and thanked her and just a lot of things that she had said. And it was very.
I'm sure that's going to mean a lot.
So I got a response from the sisters right away. It was kind of like things about their order and stuff like that. Within probably
a return envelope.
Those sisters don't miss a trick.
In charity, please include the stamp.
What can we pray for?
And I admired. It's like whichever sister had read this. Like the writing was impeccable, it's perfect, it's all nuns should be.
Right.
And
otherwise there's that other nun that's walking around watching them. And they were so overjoyed to get to write a letter. They're like, look.
They were.
Handwritten at that. That's right, yep.
Well, I helped MC for the procession through downtown.
Oh, yeah.
And while we're talking about nuns, so I brought all the priests. There were 800 or so priests or more. And we got them all lined up, which is a chore.
How bad?
And we're all lined up right by the door that the First Communion kids and the Knights of Columbus and the religious are all going to process out of. And when those nuns started walking out, there must have been, 600-800 of them, almost all in habits. And
Yes.
I was like, every nun in America is in Indianapolis at this moment.
Yes.
That's what it felt like.
What else did you do that day?
I marched.
Can't
in
that
the
be
sun,
enough?
Prayed to Jesus.
You took a little bit of grief about something I heard.
I am a firm believer of work smarter, not harder.
That's right.
So I had a little bit of a break midday, and instead of sitting down to a nice lunch, I pre-parked my car at the end of the procession.
And
So that, and then took an Uber back. Back to the convention center.
which, if you've ever been in the great city of Indianapolis, you know it wasn't that far. Because there's no
it's
place.
like 2 miles.
There's no place in downtown Indianapolis that's 2 miles from another place in downtown Indianapolis.
That's fair.
There's a lot of crazy drivers. You probably need the safety.
Well, you can't turn right on red anymore, so that slows everything down. Mm-hmm. So, what do you think of the procession? Because my son, who went, and I'm guessing was near the back, he was unhappy because he felt like it lacked reverence.
I don't know. I was significantly ahead of the Eucharist. So I walked, there were 900 priests behind me, and then
So all the priests were before the Eucharist?
yes. So the Eucharist was last of the formal procession, and then everybody kind of filled in behind that. So I don't know what the atmosphere was like when the Eucharist was actually passing through. I did not. I found it, frankly, kind of emotional and heartwarming that they would cheer so loudly for the sisters, and everybody kind of loves the sisters, right? Mm-hmm. But then also for priests, they were really, really appreciative of us and our presence there, and that was very moving. But also, people were singing the whole breadth of church music. The Salve was being chanted endlessly.
Well, mainly by the church, the sisters.
The
right?
sisters were doing it, yeah.
Awesome, yeah.
But they were also singing some Matt Maher songs and some classic hymns and just everything.
That's awesome.
It was really beautiful, I thought. But there was some cheering. But again, it's outside. It's a procession, which is basically a fancy parade.
With tens of thousands of people.
50,000 people on the streets of Indianapolis. So I did not think it was irreverent. I think it was very different than your son's kind of otherwise fairly limited, the Catholic high school Eucharistic procession in which everybody's praying the rosary as we process, or whatever, right? It's just a different kind of thing.
I was sorry I missed it. I heard it was incredible, and the idea of Jesus basically being at the circle, the center of our downtown. I mean,
one of the most striking images was when we turned the corner onto Meridian Street, about a block, maybe a block and a half south of the circle, and the steps of the memorial are just covered with people. And you really got a sense of how many people were there in that moment.
that's outstanding.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really sorry I missed it.
So is the early feedback that we're going to fall in with the rest of the world and start doing this every 10 years, or?
That seems to be the intention of the bishops at this point. I think many of us who were very involved would love to see some other city experience the joy and life that we experienced here. But
That's true charity, Father Peter.
right,
Yeah.
we don't want to be selfish and hog it all to ourselves.
No.
I also pointed out that in 10 years I'm going to be 60, 61. So
You'll definitely be Ubering everywhere then.
right.
No, he'll have one of those He'll have a Segway, but he'll have it so it looks like a Roman chariot.
Right.
Have his vestments on the front. No, I heard it was incredible.
It was.
I'm sorry I missed that. And I think it's kind of where part of it was when I was seeing just things downtown, and this is just living in the secular world, they had, like, right there by the convention center, like there on Georgia Street by St. John's, they had some, it was a tree of life kind of crucifix kind of thing, and it was probably 15 feet high.
Yeah. And now I just learned this week that's been donated to, or maybe Marion bought it. It's at Marion University.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Huh.
So I'm a little disappointed that the JW didn't put like Father Mike Schmitz or somebody up there, like they do.
Yeah.
They did have on like the crosswalks. It was like all roads lead
to revival.
Revival, and it was
starts
like
here.
I just didn't expect a city to do that. I mean, I thought that was outstanding.
So what about the other dioceses in Indiana? Did they show up pretty well? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't pay attention to what the suffragencies do. I mean, I saw some of my priest friends from Evansville and Lafayette, and Fort Wayne, South Bend. So.
What was the last Congress, like 1976? It was, I thought that was...
Well, they said it was 80 years.
Well, so the last National Congress was like in the 40s. But then we hosted the International Congress in the 70s.
Who was soon to be John Paul II.
Yes.
And where was that?
Mother Teresa.
Philly?
Bishop Fulton in Philly. And that was kind of the joke.
Bishop
like
Fulton or Bishop Fulton Sheen?
Fulton Sheen. Who is the, who are the saints who are here now?
It was, people talk about that being one of the things that propelled John Paul II to the papacy was his involvement with that universal the International Congress.
We need to do that again. We need to get Cardinal Dolan or Cardinal the one I really like from New York.
That's Dolan.
Okay.
Tobin from Newark.
Dolan or Tobin.
Yeah.
We need to get them there so we can.
Dolan preached and presided at the first mass. Here.
Big fan. He's such a funny guy.
Super, super nice guy too. Very down to earth. Yeah.
Oh, someday when Father Peter's bishop, that's what they'll be saying about him.
So this is Gen X.
I rebuke you in the name of the Lord.
I have a pop culture thing here. Have you ever watched? You didn't grow up in Indianapolis, so you might not get this. Had you ever watched some of those old Fulton Sheen videos, and you get when he does like the hand crossing thing and this cadence? Do you sometimes get a little Sammy Terry vibe?
Right.
Do it seriously.
That is
I
outstanding.
know who Sammy Terry is.
I'm not saying the guy who did Sammy Terry patterned himself off after, but it's just sometimes.
I think that was maybe a taught or a cultural experience of good public speaking for that era.
Sammy Terry was like a locally kind of famous entertainer. He actually, his name is Bob. I can't remember his last name.
But he
hosted,
music.
So he owned like a music studio, like music, like he'd sell like different instruments, stuff like that, music store. And then so he would be on like local, kind of TV, like probably like whatever, UHF or what it'd be back in the day. And
Channel
he would have
4.
scary movies. Oh, that's right, it was Channel 4. Scary movies. He would show Sammy Terry. And he had his pet fake spider George. It was like culturally a phenomenon.
And he dressed as Dracula or something
did, like
like
a
that.
version
Like
of
a
it.
cape.
It was a weird deal, like kind of a monk, kind of Dracula, kind of.
He had a cape and like a lot of heavy makeup. And it was...
It was the Indianapolis version of Elvira. I think a lot of people know what Elvira is. And let's be honest.
More modest.
That's right.
I don't...
and a dude.
Clearly.
That's right. He was very well
Nobody
clothed.
outside the south side of Indianapolis is listening to this anyway, so they all know who Sammy Terry is.
Well, his son actually has carried it on.
Yeah.
He dressed up and like...
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's funny, sometimes you read things and they just stick with you, and the Criterion every Lent asks people memories of Lent. And I remember one time somebody said, my memory was... every Friday night we'd watch Sammy Terry, and my mom would make sausage pizza, and at midnight we ate sausage pizza while we watched Sammy Terry.
Wow.
They were obviously liberal in their theology because my mom's view was it's Friday night until you go to bed. So there was none of that.
I knew a monk that every year after the Easter Vigil would drive to KFC for a bucket of chicken because the Lenten fast was definitively over. And
man, where do you find a KFC open after the?
well, he'd offer to fill in places in towns that had a KFC. So
How generous. Well, we covered a lot of ground today, man.
We did.
So,
We
yeah.
did.
Well, thank you for joining
Thank you.
Catholic Gen X. We're talking about, we've received some complaints, I think, about our email. I'm saying among the two of you.
Oh,
So we're going to get maybe a new email. I've asked our...
have we actually received any emails?
Mostly I've gotten emails about how to improve whatever technological platform for podcasts.
yeah.
That's fair.
So, because we were told by Colin, our IT man extraordinaire, that we had some
called
emails.
our producer.
Our producer.
Producer. Do we have a physical address? Because maybe our listeners are more the actual handwritten
Like
letter.
John's.
That's a good point. Maybe we need to actually have letters
What
in
are
our
you
mail.
pointing at me for?
So, anyway. Well, thanks for joining. We hope you'll listen to us next time. Talk to you soon.